Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the session. I'm just going to give it a few more minutes because we're right on time, but just in case there's any people who come a little bit later. So if you could scan the QR code, if you have a device with you, and you can welcome to the session, introduce yourself, please, and tell me where you are in the world, your name, and a little bit about your teaching and learning background, please. So I'll just leave it a couple of minutes before we start the session, and the QR code, I hope, works on the screen for you to complete your details so that we can get to know one another. Thank you. Bonjour Nadine. Bonjour Monique. I'm assuming you're a French teacher or speaker in Switzerland, but maybe German, I might be wrong. I love how international these events are as well. German and English, amazing. Welcome, nice to meet you. Okay, we'll just give it a couple more minutes. If you just joined us, welcome, good afternoon. If I can encourage you to scan the QR code on the screen, which should take you to a Padlet where you can just write a quick post introducing yourself. Alternatively, a few people have popped it in the chat. If that's easier, that's absolutely fine. Just going to give it one more minute. Thank you for being on time. Okay, I think we'll make a start, and if anybody joins, then they're very welcome to join us as we go. So good afternoon, good evening, good morning, maybe, wherever you are coming from today, and welcome to the webinar. Thank you very much for popping it on your itinerary as part of the Languages show this weekend, kicking off today. I've been told that I must mention our wonderful sponsor as well, which you can see on the screen now, which is Linguascope. Huge fan myself. I've worked with Linguascope as a classroom teacher and head of department for many years, and we love their products and their application. So welcome to everybody. We have 45 minutes to go through my session, striving towards a world-class curriculum today. So again, I just want to welcome you and to thank you for your support, and hopefully you'll find this session really useful and be able to take away some top tips, ideas, and maybe even pose some questions at the end of the session as well, and we can get into some dialogue about that. I must admit, I'm not used to one-way presentations or webinars. I much prefer being in the classroom with students to respond to me, or even adults in sessions. So it's a bit of an odd one, but please do communicate as much as you can via the chat or in the question and answer box as well. And hopefully you've scanned the QR code on the screen now. So if we just have a quick look, I'm hoping that it's worked so that we can see who we've got in the session today. So let's have a quick look. Oh, has it worked? Maybe I need to refresh. Got a couple of comments on here, maybe not. Okay, we'll use the chat instead. I think it's a safer option. All right, so let's make a start then, because with only 45 minutes, we need to get a move on. All right, so first and foremost then, I'm just going to pop my chat back up so that I can speak to you at the same time. First and foremost then, I would like to introduce myself to the group. So my name is Sarah Tolson. I currently am in Abu Dhabi, which is why it looks a little bit dark in my background today. I've tried to make it as light and airy as possible, but it is actually 7 in the evening here. So I'm currently in Abu Dhabi. As you'd guessed from my accent, I am not local. I am from the UK, originally from Derbyshire, and currently I'm working at a school, an international school, as head of languages. It is a British curriculum school, and I have had 10 years experience in the UK before I came 3 years ago to Abu Dhabi to work at the school I'm in now. As a head of department, then, I am in charge of French and Spanish. I am also a classroom teacher, first and foremost, of both of those languages, and I have been for many years now, and it's my absolute passion. First and foremost, I am a linguist, and I am a classroom practitioner, and that is where I love to be, in the classroom. The story behind today's session, hopefully you will learn as we go along. And as I said at the start of the session, hopefully you will pick up some top tips and also be able to share your expertise as well through the chat and through the question and answer session as well at the end. So once again, I want to welcome you today to the session and hope that you gain lots from it. So I wanted to start the session then with a classic, I guess, journey, curriculum map, if you like. Now, I want us to embark on a journey together today during the session, but I also, of course, I'm alluding to the curriculum journey, which we as classroom practitioners, heads of department, and potentially senior leaders here and educators are all responsible for. You will have seen, and I'm sure in your establishments yourself, you have varying different ways of approaching your curriculum. Over the past few years, curriculum maps have been very popular, and the sort of theory behind them, I guess, is it makes complete sense to me. You know, we know that education isn't something that happens in one go. We know that it's cumulative and it happens over, you know, a period of time, and that's why I really like alluding to the journey, not just in the session today, but in everything that I do in my classroom and in my curricula as well. I guess we're all from completely different educational backgrounds here. So the first thing that I wanted to do in the session was kind of get an idea of what the curriculum means to us all. So for me, I mean, the curriculum really is a collaborative effort. You cannot, as I'm sure you're aware, create a curriculum single-handedly, and should not, in fact, be doing that. It is about including your key stakeholders. I firmly believe that a truly effective curriculum has involvement from your team, from colleagues, from your students, and of course from your middle management and leadership at your school, and not excluding your community, the parents and perhaps your governors or school community. So it really is a collaborative effort when we talk about curriculum design, curriculum implementation, and curriculum impact for a truly effective curriculum, in my view. I was very lucky in February this year. I had the opportunity to talk at the Abu Dhabi Teacher Conference, which is an excellent event, and it was held here in Abu Dhabi. I delivered there a similar session to this on my true passion, which is curriculum and the development of curriculum. And the room was full of a complete mixture of people, middle leaders, senior leaders, classroom practitioners, which was great. And obviously it was a more collaborative environment than we have today. So we went through, you know, lots of sharing of best practice, ideas, questions and answers, and it was great. Now, what I did learn at this talk that I did back in February, which I absolutely loved, was that the curriculum means something very similar to us all, but everybody is approaching it in a different way. And I absolutely love that about delivering these sessions, because I think that's so important, that is personalized to you, to your school, to your students, and to your culture. and the community in which you're teaching in or which you're delivering your curriculum in. So I was really, really pleased to have discovered that at the Abu Dhabi Teacher Conference, and I'm sure today as well I'm surrounded by like-minded people who approach curriculum in a very different but effective way. I'm going to include all of the hyperlinks and references at the end of this presentation today. So please, as we're going through, if I make any references to any articles or to any quotes, please don't worry. I will post them all at the end as links, okay? All right, so I have got a couple of people that have said hello on the chat, so thank you very much. If you can type a quick hello, it will make me feel better at least, so that I'm not talking to a screen. So I've already met Monique and Nadine, and I've got Cecilia as well, who's teaching Spanish at primary school, which is amazing. Really, really enjoy hearing from primary school teachers as well. I'm traditionally a secondary school teacher, but having worked internationally, I'm now teaching Key Stage 2, which has definitely been a challenge and very exciting for me. We've got Charlie and Paula as well, which is great, welcome. And we've got a primary school teacher for French as well. So it looks like we've got a nice mix of languages here today as well. So we've got Spanish, and Italian as well. Somebody's on with a secondary school teaching Italian, fantastic French and Spanish head of languages, PGC trainees from Leeds Trinity, say hi, welcome guys. Hopefully you will learn something today. Excellent, thank you, that's made me feel better that I'm not just talking to myself. All right, fantastic. So without further ado then, we are going to look at the meaning of curriculum to us all. As I was just explaining, it quite rightly means something different to us all. Our curriculum intentions then, so sort of alluding to the classic Ofsted intent, implement and impact, I'm going to be following that through today's session because I firmly believe in that, despite now teaching in a non-UK country where Ofsted don't exist. It's still the same principles apply to the inspections that we have here, and I'm sure in other countries internationally as well. So I'm going to have a look at you know, really stating your curriculum intentions, but as I said before, not doing that on your own, not doing that as a single body, but actually doing the whole process of this curriculum development as collaboratively as you possibly can. We're also going to touch on the implementation. So what does a good, effective, world-class curriculum look like in the classroom as well, on the ground, if you like? And of course, how do we secure and ensure that lifelong learning is really established through the activities and the teaching and learning that we're providing through our curricula? And finally, we need to have a look at measuring the impact then. So, you know, don't be afraid, and I say this time and time again to my team, to colleagues, to people that I'm presenting to, you know, don't be afraid to reroute. Never be afraid to reflect on that journey, if you like, and never be afraid to make changes to that, you know. I always think of the classic, having, you know, observed many lessons in my career to date, of, you know, that quite inexperienced teacher that you might observe for maybe their first lesson ever, and they're following their teacher plan, you know, by the book, step by step, because they've planned it so well, they've been taught to do so. However, as lessons do, sometimes things don't go according to plan. And what do you do in that situation? Now, I remember being a NQT student, as it was then, back in the day, and I remember being so scared to move away from that rigid curriculum plan or lesson plan that I'd made. And I almost didn't worry about what was in front of me. I just had to follow that plan, because if I didn't follow that plan, then that was it. You know, my lesson would be ruined. Obviously, we know as professionals and like-minded colleagues here that, you know, we need to adapt our teaching and learning to the students in front of us. And the exact same principles for me are applicable for a curriculum. So, you know, you are responding constantly as teachers. In fact, I saw something just last night. It was a meme, I think, on Facebook that said something about teachers making something ridiculous like 100 times more decisions than a brain surgeon in a day. And it is so true. You know, you are reactive. You're reacting to the students, to the learning in front of you, to better the outcomes for that lesson. Okay, so please don't be afraid to go back, reflect, make the changes that you need to your curriculum, whether that's, you know, large impact of long-term curriculum down to, you know, what I call the micro, the sort of medium-term planning and the lesson planning. Okay, so my philosophy then, my educational philosophy, I like to share because I think it links in nicely as well to sort of the bones of this session and what I wanted to talk to you about today or this afternoon. So I really liked James Norman's curriculum metaphor that I stumbled across, which was actually to do with a curriculum being like a GPS system. And actually, the more I thought about that and the more I read about his metaphor, and I've shared the link at the end of the presentation so you can have a watch. It's actually in a video format. The more I really, really like this. The idea, of course, is that, you know, my husband and I have come over to Abu Dhabi and we're here to teach, but we're also here, of course, to do lots of traveling, and we have done over the past 3 years. And I know when we set out on a journey, if I'm like anybody else here, you know, we use the sat nav, and no matter whether you know your start destination and your end destination, and you know that's set in stone, along the journey, things can happen, right? You know, there could be a road closure. There could be a huge traffic jam, particularly living in Dubai. We know about these. You might fancy along the way, I'm going to stop for some food at the petrol station, or I'm going to go off and see that signpost, that really interesting attraction. You know, things change along your journey, I'm sure. And sometimes sat navs change for you, whether you want them to or not, unfortunately, when they lose signal. And I just really liked this idea of envisaging not just the curriculum as a journey or a map, but as a live GPS system, because for me, that's what a curriculum should be. It should be alive. It should be open to change. It should be reactive, just like we are in a classroom situation, as much as possible. So I really liked that metaphor from James Norman there as well. And that's my all-time classic that I wanted to share with you as a language teacher and a linguist as well. And I'm sure you've seen that quote before from the legend that was Nelson Mandela. Yes, great metaphor. It is. Perfect. Okay, so we wanted to start off then today with what is curriculum. Now, this is an interesting topic because as I was planning this, I thought to myself, well, I know what I think curriculum is. I've done a lot of reading around what other educationalists think a curriculum should be or what it looks like. But actually, what is the definition of a curriculum? So before we go into the Oxford definition, which I think you'll find quite amusing, I would like to hand over the floor to you now, guys. Can I ask you, please, to write in the chat for me, this is quite difficult, in no more than 3 words, what is curriculum to you? Can you define that in 3 words for me in the chat? Just give you a couple of minutes. Oh, excellent. We've got loads here. Plan, progression, content, objective, tools, pathway to proficiency. That's lovely, Emily. I love that. Mandated learning areas, journey, growth, challenge. Lovely, Charlene. Plan, goals, tools. Great. Program of learning. Excellent. And this is exactly what I mean. It's so interesting because everybody's interpretation is different, but nobody's is incorrect. It's just so personal to your educational setting and to the students in front of you and your teams, isn't it? Amazing. Right, I'll please continue to type if you haven't already in the chat. No more than 3 words, your definition of curriculum, please. But we've had some excellent ones there. Really great. Thank you so much. Really interesting for me to see as well. I'll keep the chat up so I can keep looking back at those. Thank you. Okay, so this is, would you believe, the Oxford English Dictionary definition of curriculum. The subjects comprising a course of study in a school or college. Now, talk about stripping the passion and the dedication and the opportunities we give our students away from teaching, right? This is obviously a very, very summarized idea of a curriculum, probably written by somebody that's never been in a classroom in their life. So thankfully, we appreciate, as I can see on the chat, that it is a lot more than just that, of course, isn't it? And we appreciate the complexity and the challenge for ourselves as educationalists and teachers, practitioners here, in making sure that we're offering our students the absolute best that we can through our curriculum. And I love this quote here as well. And you're going to see that I'm honestly not getting paid to, she's not a sponsor, Mary Maya. I hope she's listening. That would be amazing. But she is very much my educational guru. I've read most of her books and I love her philosophy on everything to do with curriculum. So if you haven't read any of Mary Maya's things, or she does a lot of webinars actually as well and podcasts now, then please do tune in. And I've got some suggestions and links at the end as well. So real work is, of course, in the improving learning, which should be the crux of every curriculum. Okay, so we're going to start our journey. Now, the first thing that, of course, as teacher practitioners, we need to be aware of working in educational establishments is it's fine for us to create these all singing or dancing, wonderfully ambitious curriculum, but if our students cannot access the curriculum, because, referring here to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, due to physiological needs, safety needs, love and belonging, esteem, or self-actualization, if any of those components are actually missing in a young person, then unfortunately they will not be able to have that same access to our fantastic world-class curricula here. So I think when we're thinking about our curriculum, it really is, for me, and I said this at the start and I will keep reiterating this, it is not a standalone journey. It cannot be a single person producing this curriculum. It's got to be the experts who have the main input, of course, our classroom practitioners, right? We are the experts in this, okay? But it's got to also align with our values, our culture, our community, and our roles as teachers within our school setting, but of course within our community and our society as well. And in addition to that, of course, it's got to be a whole school thing. You cannot produce a curriculum for MFL, for example, for French in your school with completely turning a blind eye to any other curriculum in your school. And I'm sure you're very aware of that. I suppose not that recently really has been around with cross-curricular implementation, which I just think is fantastic, and I think it's something that it's very time consuming and can be very difficult as senior leaders to actually manage and to organize, but I think it's such a powerful tool to be able to share ideas, not just as a department, but cross-curricularly across your school as well, when we think about developing skills for long-term learning and lifelong learning for our students, where they can see and make those definite connections between the subjects so that we're not in a standalone MFL. Now, what a good one looks like. I use this a lot, as I'm sure you all do in your teaching with my students. And I thought, as I'm doing this session tonight, for me, this afternoon for some of you, I was thinking to myself, right, if I was watching this, I would want an actual summary, because there's so many different aspects of curriculum that you could look at and you could talk about for hours and hours, and I definitely could, and I only have a few minutes. So what I've tried to do, hopefully it's useful and it comes through in this presentation, is try to define what a good one, in my opinion, looks like in terms of a curriculum. And I think the 4 things that I've chosen here really encompass a lot of what I'm talking about today. So the first, and in no particular order, by the way, the first thing that I really think is absolutely at the crux of an outstanding curriculum is trust. And when I talk about trust here, I mean trust of your department, trust from your students, trust from your senior middle leaders and everybody in that school or educational establishment, and trust from your stakeholders as well, you know, be it in a state-funded or private school, your community, your governors, your parents, or guardians. I really truly believe that it is a collaborative effort as much as possible here. And you might ask yourself, well, what do you mean? You know, we can't invite everybody in when we're making a new scheme of learning or scheme of work for a particular topic, module, GCSE specification that comes out. I get that, I appreciate that. But what I mean here is just little things that perhaps you can do to help embed that trust. Things like, for example, student pupil surveys and giving them a voice. I know in the department that I've got at the moment, we do regular student voices just to gain feedback from students. We introduced Spanish last year at Key Stage 3, and we were keen. You know, I think the curriculum looks great on paper. I think the lessons that I'm teaching, that I'm delivering, and that my team are delivering are awesome. And the learning in the books is fantastic. And the results on the assessments are brilliant. But does that mean that the students are enjoying the learning? Does that mean that it's an effective curriculum? I think it's really, really important to have all of our stakeholders involved in that. Parent surveys, really useful to gather information on what the child is learning, because at the end of the day we see them for, I mean, if your school is anything like mine, not a great deal of curriculum time, unfortunately, for languages. So it really is a snapshot, and we will give them as much as we can in that hour, 2 hours, 3 hours a week, but we need to open it up. The curriculum is everybody's responsibility when we're talking about education here. Fit for purpose, so by that I mean again, collaboration comes into that, but also thinking very carefully about who our students are in front of us, our context, the needs of our students, of course, is extremely important when we're taking something from macro, you know, a long-term plan, to micro, to what it looks like in a lesson day to day. What does that learning look like? Making sure that it's completely fit for purpose. Is it challenging? I am a firm believer in challenge, in high stakes, in desirable difficulties. I think that it only helps raise aspirations amongst young people, from my experience in very different types of school and educational settings as well. And of course, you know, let us not forget that one size doesn't fit all. Gone are the days, and I am completely guilty for this. When I first started teaching as a very inexperienced NQT, I arrived at a department where the scheme of work was downloaded from a website, and we used it, we followed it, and we followed the textbook. Now, I am not saying there's anything wrong with textbooks, by the way, because I quite like textbooks. However, what obviously over the years, and thanks to lots of research that's been done, and also thanks to Ofsted as well, we have brought the focus, thankfully, back to the curriculum and handing that to the experts in the establishment, making sure that it is personalised, making sure that it is fit for purpose and for the learning and the students in front of you as well. So gone are the days of downloading, thankfully, pre-made schemes of work and following those. Fluidity, I've talked about this and I'll talk again, you know, review cycles. You've all heard of the constant review cycle that we do in not just ourselves as teachers here and educationalists, but in lots of different areas of business as well, and other sectors. You know, constant review cycle. What was our intention here? How do we see it working in the classroom? How are we measuring that impact as we go along? And what do we need to do to improve that? Constantly improving. It's funny because we always teach our students, you know, whatever you might use, what went well, EBI, or whatever acronyms you might use, to be reflective learners, which is such an important skill for life, lifelong learning. And yet sometimes we find in our jobs, I think, that we don't have much time to actually sit down as a team or as a school and actually review what the outcomes are and how we can improve our practice and the outcomes for our students. And that leads me quite nicely onto time, and I'm just looking at my watch now as well, and realizing that you all have lots of very interesting things to do on a Friday night, so I won't keep you later than I should do. But scrutiny, lack of time dedicated to curriculum development. Now, I'm not going to sit here tonight and start moaning and groaning. This isn't the purpose of this session, but I know that time is not on our side when we're talking about educational establishments and teaching. Curriculum time is so important. Curriculum development time is vitally important. And I really think if we have heads of department, which I've seen on the chat we do today, or senior leaders with us, that this is something that we do neglect far too often in schools and colleges. And I really think that personally, without that time collaboratively to review, to create, there's no point in us being in the classroom, in my opinion. It really has to be a priority. Okay, so I'm going to move on now then to, as I said before, I am very much a fan of the intent, implementation and impact. I use that as part of my review cycles in my department, for myself, my own practice, and also in CPD sessions that I've run before. I think it's of vital importance to ensure continuous development for ourselves and our students. I've also put at the bottom there ADEC, who is the Abu Dhabi Schools Inspection Authority as well. But they are, as you will see, very much in line, and I am assuming, but don't know, so please do let me know, that internationally, you know, inspectors and educational authorities are looking for the same sort of rationale here, continuity, progression, of course, the cross-curricular we've talked about, and this constant review and bettering our own practice as well. Okay, when I talk about fit for purpose then, to be a little bit more specific and to give you some examples, what I mean by this is how students are learning and not the content. Now, the content we can download from Pearson, AQA, you know, I'm talking about Key Stage 4 and 5 here mainly, but any other providers, Linguisco, you know, LanguageNet, we've got all of these great educational companies that will pre-make curriculum plans for us, which is amazing. And it saves so much work. We've also, of course, got our AI friend who can also, you know, do a fantastic job of creating a curricula for us. But what I think is really important is not just to focus too much on the content, on the what, but on actually what does this look like in practice? So how are our students interpreting these curriculum plans or journeys? And what does that look like in a classroom situation? And how do we, again, measure the impact and the success of that as well? Now, something that I found really interesting, and again, link is at the end, is this Mercer's Global Talent Trends study as well that was done for the previous year. And obviously, we all know and we're all seeing, I'm sure in our educational settings, the impact of the pandemic. But actually, it took a really positive spin for once on that impact in education. And it was talking and alluding to the fact that this year, 2023, is actually this defining year of transformation and, you know, embedding and really practicing that resilience that our students have had to learn, and our teachers, through the challenges that the pandemic actually brought about. So it's a really interesting article actually to read, and really interesting when we're thinking of curriculum planning, our teaching and learning as well. So we need to foster curiosity, of course, in our students. We need to engage them. And we know this as languages teachers. We do this day in, day out. You know, I don't know how many colourful props or, you know, engaging applications and games that we play with our students to engage, to hook, and to make sure that they're, you know, really enjoying the language learning as well. But making it real, making it relevant. And again, this will differ for every single person in this webinar today, depending on your context and the students and young people in front of you. So how do you foster that curiosity? How do you know what your students are interested in? if you don't collaborate with them and make sure that your key stakeholders are a part of this curriculum design and development. Make it purposeful, as I've said, and relevant as well. Embed AI technologies. I'm sure we're all doing. There's so many amazing social media teaching and learning ideas and posts and all sorts of things at the moment. I'm actually going on a course next week in Dubai on an AI course, not specifically for languages, but teaching and learning in general. So yeah, I know I'm certainly using it. And I did a lesson with Year 11 the other day actually, and when I put Chat GPT on the board and showed them what I'd done, I'd asked it to write a presentation about sport in French, and I wanted it to include, the following adverbs, C clauses, etc., etc. And voila, it produced it in a matter of milliseconds. And they were all going, "What? How is she allowing that?" I think they have this idea that teachers are, we're really old and we're really against it because we're so against Google Translate and we're always telling them not to use it. But actually, it's about teaching them, isn't it, to use it responsibly and to use it. It's going to be part of life. It is part of life. So it's how we start embedding that and using it to our advantage to help students with their language learning and to help student outcomes in general as well. And aim high. I've talked about this, challenge. Of course, we need the support. Of course, we need the scaffolding. And we're fantastic at that as language teachers, naturally. We have to start here and build on the language to form a sentence, a paragraph, or whatever. We're amazing at giving the support through vocab sheets, etc., sentence builders. But, setting those expectations in your curriculum planning really high, so that it's infusing and inspiring students, particularly when we're talking about languages, because as we know, a lot of students can find them quite difficult and can very quickly take a negative approach to language lessons if we don't set our expectations really high. Okay, so moving on to intent then. I realise the time, so I'm going to move very swiftly because I'm sure you've got other webinars and, as I say, other plans. So the intent then for me, once we have shared our common values, our ethos, we've involved our community and our stakeholders, it's about what it looks like in the classroom for me. Now, so I'm just going to very quickly go through the intent because I've talked a lot about it already. One of the things I did want to mention though is a good starting point. If you're in a situation, which I've been in all three schools actually that I've worked at in my career, where you are implementing a scheme of learning or a curriculum from scratch, for the first time. So let's say you're introducing a new language to the school, or there's never been a language specialist in your primary school and you're employed now as that specialist. I think a really good thing to do is to sit down and do sort of a SWOT analysis of anything that's already there. So maybe they've got some prehistoric, French scheme of learning there, or maybe somebody's taught it in the school before, but they weren't very confident with it. So something that I really enjoyed when I started my new role in Abu Dhabi doing with my department is looking at what we'd already got. So not reinventing the wheel, but actually looking at the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities and the threats within our school community, for the students in front of us, and sort of starting from there to model our curriculum around that. Now, let us not forget, as I've said, we are the experts here. And what I've provided for you, and apologies if this is slightly patronising because you've been here, you've seen it, you might have even had a deep dive, been the lucky ones from Ofsted. But I've just put a link here, and again, I'll post it in the chat at the end, to a really good article actually here about Ofsted deep dives and about how to prepare for those, particularly focusing on curriculum questions as well, and talking about your intention, how it's implemented, what it looks like, and the impact. This is an activity that I would have done had we been in a nice classroom today and all face to face, but again, I'm more than happy to share this presentation with you. I'm going to put my email address and socials at the end, so please do contact me if you would find the presentation useful or you have to nip off before the end. But just some sort of starter questions that I like to do with colleagues and staff to talk about, our curriculum and just get us talking and really thinking about what we've already got and what we want, where we're heading. So the implementation then, I love this quote, it's about making sure that students develop a reliable compass and the navigation skills to find their own way through an increasingly uncertain, volatile and ambiguous world. Absolutely love that. And that for me could not be more apt than when we're creating and developing curriculum and teaching and learning. Okay, so what should every curriculum include? Now, I am not going to sit here this afternoon and tell you this is what it has to include, because as we've already established, everybody's is different, and that's brilliant. And that's absolutely fit for purpose, fit for the students in front of you. So I have just put together a few ideas here. And as I said, they are by no means all of the things that we need to include in our curriculum. It's not exhaustive here, but I've probably missed off 100 things, in fact, that you can think of here. But again, the key here is effective planning behind it. And what does this look like in a classroom? At the end of the day, guys, we're not magicians. We cannot do all of this in every lesson, and we cannot ensure, we can try, but we cannot ensure that every single curriculum that we create and that we develop and that we deliver has every single one of these and more in it. We can only do as much as we can do, and we will model that and we will adapt that and we will judge that from our professionalism and teacher judgment on what we see in the learning, in the outcome of our students. Now, this is something that I really like as well. I'm just looking at time. I don't think I've got time to show the video, but again, the link is at the end. It's the learning pit. You've probably seen it before, but it's about keeping your students in the struggle zone. So I have made reference to, setting our standards really high and the expectations with desirable difficulties. But I think this is a really, really lovely short clip just to get you thinking and your teams thinking about, setting those goals really high for your curriculum design. I'm going to hope that I can skip through this without playing it.
Have you ever
Yes. Okay. Adaptive teaching is something else that I wanted to touch on. Of course, differentiation. Now we have made a switch to adaptive teaching, which I'm very, very pleased about. And again, it's emphasizing this challenge for all and making sure that this is included in our curriculum and in our classroom teaching and learning. So again, I've used this in CPD sessions before, but it's just that comparison and that move away from, that expectation as teachers. We have to produce 3 different worksheets to fit the needs of our students. Absolutely not. It's all about scaffolding, progression, and all of that can be done through really good curriculum design as well. Okay, so anticipating misconceptions, language barriers, maybe if you have a high population of bilingual or EAL students in your school as well. Another one just on Challenge for All, just some things to think about. And again, if you're interested in the PowerPoint, very happy to share this with you at the end of the session through the socials. Now, this is something when at the start of term that I shared with my department as well, talking about, this really aspirational world-class curriculum. This is what we want. Are we there yet? No, we're not. And we can all say that honestly. Is that something that I'm really ashamed of or disappointed with? No, because I know that we're striving towards it, because we are on this continuous review, assessment, plan and do cycle where we want to better our practice and to improve constantly the learning of our students. Okay, so it is never a finished product and it never should be. So there's just some ideas in there. And again, I can share this with you. I wanted to show you because this was the bare bones of the curriculum. We call it long-term plan that we had for French, actually, which spans whole school, year 2, now to year 12. We have our first year of year 12s, but this was 3 years ago and what it looks like. And I just wanted to show you this because this was the process, the starting process, as we collaborated as a team and with other departments and started to think about. Now, the color coding here is alluding to different things that we thought about that a really effective curriculum needed in our school setting. So things like stretch and challenge, cross-curricular links planned in to different topic areas. And of course, making sure that there's that progression, but also embedding the retrieval that we know our students need for language learning as the journey progresses. So please don't think that was the finished product. As I said, there's never a finished product in curriculum design. Okay, with just a few minutes left then, the impact. This to me is so, so important when we're talking about curriculum. you know, this Tom Sherrington quote here, we're giving value to what we can measure, not measuring what we can value. And we know as educationalists and classroom practitioners here, the pressures that we have day in, day out from just looking at the end product of our students, you know, whether that's the exam result, the SAT score, whatever it might be, okay, that end summative assessment score. Now, of course, that is important and it's very, very useful for us. But the impact can happen in so many different ways, as you know, from teaching young people. And so it's about how do we actually measure that so that we can strive towards continually reviewing and bettering that. And I'm going to allude, to my GPS metaphor there again, look, which I love. Rerouting, no problem whatsoever. Don't be afraid to reroute. We are the experts. If it's not working, we reroute. I've talked about student voice as a really good example there of including your stakeholders. Okay, the final few words from me and from my guru, Mary here, Maya. So just a few things that I wanted to share with you that I have summarized from one of her amazing books here, which is, I think you pronounce it her, but it's a fantastic book if you're interested in curriculum design and development like myself. And again, I've put a recommended reading list at the end of this so you can have a look. And I just wanted then to end by saying that I hope you found today's session, albeit very rushed, useful. You may ask then, well, Sarah, you invited me to this webinar this afternoon, this evening. What is a world-class curriculum then? I thought you were going to give me it on a plate. I'm sure you didn't think that. And I apologize if anybody thought it would be a pre-made, here we go, you know, buy me a coffee sort of session with a fully outstanding world-class curriculum to hand over to you. Of course it's not. And we've discussed why it shouldn't be like that. The best that we can do, in my opinion, is strive to prepare the young people in front of us and the children for this journey and enjoy every single minute of it. Because as Mary Myatt herself has said, there is no one right way to develop a curriculum. And I have put lots of books and journals there and articles that I've read that have really inspired me in my curriculum design journey and continue to do so in the work that I do. There's some further recommended reading links here, lots of things that I have talked about during the webinar today. I'm going to post those in a second onto the chat so that hopefully you can either copy and paste them onto your device, or you can access them now and have a quick look through those. If you would like a copy of the presentation today, the organisers of the show have promised me that it's been recorded, so you can tune back if you really want to in your own time. Please share with colleagues as well if it's helpful, and please do contact me on any of the socials or my email that's on my screen now. Really, really love to collaborate with you to give advice and also to share expertise, because I am a huge fan of networking. I'm the head of languages this year for the BSME, the British Schools Middle East, and I'm absolutely loving that role at the moment. So I think during COVID, it really was neglected, and I love nothing more than to network with people. So please do contact me. I hope you have a wonderful evening. And yeah, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope you've learned something today. Please feel free. I'm going to stay on for like 5 minutes or more if you need me to. So questions and answers, I'm going to check now. Sorry, I've not been looking during the session, but I promised I would at the end. If there's anything else in the chat that you want to put in, please do, and I'll hang about for 5 minutes. Have a wonderful evening or afternoon, a wonderful weekend, and hopefully catch up soon. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, do, Lisa. Please share with colleagues. That would be great. Also in Abu Dhabi at BSAD. Amazing. Lisa, if you're still on, that's incredible. If you, Lisa, can contact me via any of the social, my email, and then I can email you back and maybe we could meet up. That would probably be easier, which would be great. Thank you, Lisa. That's really great. Thank you for tuning in. Have a lovely evening. Still on, we'll email. Thank you, Lisa. Amazing. I didn't think we'd have anyone from Abu Dhabi. It's made me feel at home. I'm just going to check any questions and answers. No, okay. Please feel free to ask anything at all. I know that you can't actually speak because the microphones are all turned off, which is terrible for me because I love talking to people, but please type in the chat now if there's anything at all I can help with, anything you want to ask about. I'm going to post the links now, as I promised, so just bear with me. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, post these links. Okay, I've posted all the links now, so hopefully they should work. And I will just pop my business card back up in case there's anybody else that wants to contact me with any questions. Ruth, if you don't worry, if you email me, my email's on the screen now, I can send you the whole presentation or just those slides across, no problem. Oh, that's amazing. I don't know your name because it says guest, but that sounds really interesting. Discover the World Education. Yeah, that sounds great. Right up my street. Okay. And looking to run an event in Dubai in March as well. That would be amazing. Yeah. Pronounced Sohili. I hope I got that right. Sohili, is that correct? Yes, would love to collaborate. Perfect. Thank you. Would love to collaborate with you. I'm assuming, are you in the area then, or are we just planning on traveling to Dubai for this? Oh, based in the UK. Okay, lovely. Well, hopefully you get a nice holiday out of it as well, because it's lovely temperature here now. Not to rub it in for people in the UK. But yes, perfect. Okay, amazing. So if you want to send me an email or contact me on any of my socials, then Sohili, I would love to collaborate, definitely. Perfect. Look forward to speaking to you. Right, guys, I'm going to go. You're very welcome. Thank you to you as well for participating. I'm going to go now and enjoy my Friday evening, as I'm sure you are too. Thank you again to everybody. And again, if you want a screenshot or take a photo of my business card, please do get in touch if you would like any of the presentation material or to contact me for any advice or just to say hello. Okay, thanks so much. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.